Hello and welcome back, everyone. Well, this is, of course, Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and friends. And folks, the friends should be here momentarily because they're just rolling in. Obviously, Hargeet Chani just joined us, as well as Crispy Bomb, who's making a surprise appearance, and Kay Asante, and hopefully Everborn Saga will be joining on the back end. But listen, folks, it's obviously the eve to Thanksgiving. If you celebrate it, Mrs. Boomstick and I wish you and your families a very happy and plentiful Thanksgiving. Of course, we want you to stay safe. Remember, not drink and drive because all you do is ruin your life and others. And listen, who knew, Harky Chani, we were going to get a story this big where Sony finds themselves behind the eight balls? I say balls. I should have said 8 ball, but you know what it is. um, listen, there are some people doubting that this lawsuit that has been approved by the CMA will render anything against Sony. But the truth of the matter is that this is what you and I and Crispy and many on this panel talked about when Jim Ryan was flying all over the world to try and block the deal for the Activision Blizzard King merger. And in doing so, they forced Microsoft to go to court to try and fight this, which they had to do. And in those trials, well, Hargeet, all of their dirty dealings were put out there for everyone to see. And it turns out that maybe that's one of the main reasons why Jim Ryan was relieved of his duty, because he put a crosshair on Sony, who is the market leader in most regions. I mean, that they didn't trip on and become market leader. They put out a lot of great games and a lot of great hardware, and people, bought it up and it, reviewed well. But at the end of the day, it exposed them. Pause. So first of all, Hargeet Chani, welcome. How you feeling, brother?
Good. My first week of vacation. I've been playing and playing and playing. Finished a few games already.
Very nice.
But yeah, and then it's Thanksgiving tomorrow for those in the U.S. Enjoy. Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays.
Yes, indeed. And you're going to have a happy holiday because you don't go back until January something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there you
Jan
go.
2, yeah.
You're going to be able to enjoy plenty of games that you got to catch up on.
Oh yeah.
I am in the last 2 or 3 missions of Starfield.
Oh,
So I'm
very
about
nice.
to roll credits on that. I'm very excited. I have been playing Halo Infinite, actually Halo 3 Refueled like a madman. I'm closing in on 18 days of play. It is honestly, folks, I don't see and you know what's funny? I see people talking about it, and more people need to talk about it because it is the return of Halo. Honestly, it is something really special. And credit to 343 for not letting this thing die on a vine. Like, honestly, it's only going to get better, and it continues to just be great. But listen, let's welcome in Crispy Bomb, who always seems to be lurking in the rafters. When he sees the bat signal, he pounces. When it happens to be, well, bad news for Sony. And here you are, sir. How you feeling?
Great to be here. Hargeet, man, great interview I saw last night. So
yes, phenomenal interview.
I thought you were gonna win it though. I thought you were gonna win. You're so nonchalant though. You gotta be like rapid fire. You gotta be like bam, 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 bam.
I actually have to work on being slower. I was way too fast in like talking. The problem with that is when you talk to people across the world, they, English is not their first language. So if you talk really fast, they just don't know what the heck
you don't
get
it. So that makes sense.
I've tried to make my speech slower, more deliberate, right? So
no, hey, I completely get it. Well done, sir. It's just great to be here. We've been telling you about Sony for a while, and I know all three of us have told you that they screwed around and they're going to find out, and they're about to find out because they opened up their doors to lawsuits, and that's what it comes down to. And you could sit here and say, oh, well, Xbox is still in the lawsuit. we're talking about a hypothetical situation with Xbox. We are not talking about the same thing. These are grievances against Sony right off rip.
Yeah, and we're going to break down exactly why they got there and how they actually got there. Because what's interesting, Hargeet, as we wait for the other panel members to get here, one of the things Sony did a couple of years ago is they pulled the ability for stores like Amazon and like Target and Best Buy and GameStop and just go down the line, whatever your favorite entertainment store is, and they took the ability away for those retailers to sell digital games and digital items. The only thing that you can currently buy at any of these retailers is the PSN cards. So you can then go take that PSN card, put the code into your PSN, and buy the game directly from Sony. Now, that's not the case for Nintendo, because if, for instance, they do have these big sales, sometimes, not always, but sometimes you'll see the digital version on sale with the physical version. And for some people, like myself, I buy all of my Switch games on physical. I have a few digital ones, but mostly they're physical games. Most of the PlayStation stuff I had for PS4 is all on actual disc, but now I buy most of my stuff just digitally. Same thing for, of course, Xbox. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Best Buy, and you can see they have the cards hanging there for game A, and you can buy the game there. And sometimes they have these Black Friday sales, and you go and you say, "Oh, this digital game is on sale. I'm going to buy it." Well, ultimately, what Sony has done is closed their doors to sell their games at their pricing, and that is what is at the crux of this lawsuit. Because according to Reuters, which is the one that broke the story, and I want to read it verbatim, folks. Sony, according to Reuters, this was posted yesterday. It says Sony must face a mass lawsuit worth up to 6.3 billion pounds, which equates to 7.9 billion US dollars, over claims that the PlayStation maker abused its dominant position, leading to unfair prices for consumers or customers. A London tribunal ruled today, and the London tribunal that they are referring to is the CAT, which is the one that was involved with the CMA versus Microsoft for the right to acquire Activision Blizzard King. Now, according to the story, Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE, was sued last year on behalf of nearly 9 million people in the United Kingdom who had bought digital games and or add-on content through Sony's PlayStation Store. Now, Alex Neil, a consumer advocate who has worked on previous campaigns, is bringing the case up against Sony, which is valued up to 5 billion pounds, 6.23 billion plus interest. Her lawyers said that the aggregated damages estimate of the case were upwards of 6.3 billion pounds in court filings last month. She also claims that the company abused its dominant position by requiring digital games and add-ons to be bought and sold only via PlayStation Store, which charges a 30% commission to developers and publishers. Now, that 30% commission obviously is standard fare across the board, Hargeet, but that's not really the crux of the conversation and the complaint. It's the fact that by Sony only selling this content on their store, they dictate the prices. So consumers have no choice but to pay whatever the price is. If they choose not to put game A on sale, then you want that game, even if it's on a Black Friday or something, you have to pay that said price. Unlike if you were to try and get a game on Black Friday that was digital, like for Xbox or a Nintendo, you can do that at other retailers. Let's talk about it, man. Because there are some people poo-pooing this. And it really did take a lot. It took hours after this story from Reuters, who is like probably one of the legit places you want to get your business news from, before any of the IGNs and the GameSpots and the Kotakus actually ran this story and actually covered it. Some people are saying that it's not going to go anywhere. It's no big deal. I beg to differ. If Kat says that there's enough here for a trial.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when this was initially announced, I think a lot of people dismissed it. I did not. I said there's merit here because of what they're doing and it being different from the other platforms, since those platforms do allow you to buy digital codes. And look, a lot, there's CD Keys, Annabelle, all those sites that do these things. They do that because those are available, and that gives you discounts, right? People can get games cheaper. Even
Yes.
at launch, they get them cheaper. And that's because of competition, right? Because the store wants you to buy from them. So they'll cut into their margin and say, well, we'll take only a few percent instead of the 20-30% that we're allotted and give you the discount. We'll pass it to the customer, right? And that's exactly what they want. They want the customer to gain an advantage in the market. That's the whole point, so that consumers have choice. Therefore, competition will drive prices down, right? When Sony dictates everything, well, you're kind of stuck, right? So, and so Steam codes are available, Xbox codes are available. You mentioned Nintendo, so all the other platforms are doing this. You can get codes everywhere, and you can get them cheaper than buying directly from their store. And if Sony pulled this in 2019, I think this was right before Jim started, but it's an interesting timing mix. But yeah, so they kind of put themselves in a little bit of jeopardy. I don't know if it's specific to the trial or not, but what is specific to the trial is the size of their market share in the UK and in EU that Sony enjoys, makes them kind of a monopoly, right? And they're starting to see this.
Yes.
And that's what this lawsuit is about, is saying, hey, look, you're taking advantage of your massive market share and locking people out from being able to sell your games. That's not fair practice. Therefore, you should be sued. Fair enough, right? It's good that somebody, normally you would expect the CMA or the European regulators to do this on their own, right? To say, hey, you can't just pull from everybody else. That's unfair. You need to go back and give it to everybody so that they can sell it. But here it's taking I guess you could say private citizen is really just a lawyer, right? So, bringing a lawsuit. Fair enough, right? So we'll see if it goes anywhere. I've always thought there's merit to this. There's a chance it could not go anywhere, but there's a good chance that it could go somewhere. And I don't know that they would have to give up that much capital, but it would probably be a settlement in the form of discounts or whatever to all their customers, right? It would be, I guess, in the EU or UK. Right, so they have to do something over there to compensate for the failure of allowing competition, right? So we'll see what happens, right? It's not like it would be a cash outlay, but there would be something that they would have to do to fix this going forward. But we'll see. I mean, maybe it is a cash outlay. Maybe it's like $2 for everybody who bought a game or something like that. We'll see what ends up happening, but yeah, it's a good way to keep companies in check, right? This is the way you keep, like, open market capitalism is awesome. It can also be like, you can have these kind of things happen, and then it's up to us to say, no, this ain't fair. I'm going to sue you, and we'll fix this, right? And this is how you do it. This is how you bring attention to it and say, nope, you got to do it better than this, and we'll see where it ends up going, right? So hopefully they win, and Sony, like the other players, will say, yes, other stores, other retailers can sell our digital codes, and you can, as a consumer, you will gain an advantage, right? You can buy things with whichever retailer gives you the better price. Go for it, right? That's the whole point. It's open market, right? So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's very interesting because and I'm going to come back around to you in a second because I'm pulling like pieces from the story, but I want to go to Crispy Bomb. Crispy, you and I obviously have talked about this on many other shows. There is a very unconsumer friendly way that Sony does business, right? If you look at how they consistently rake over their players, the hashtag for the payers, it's come to fruition, right? You said it earlier without using the word F around and find out. And I think they're about to find out. Now, regardless of if they're going to lose, nearly $8 billion, I honestly couldn't tell you. But if this it's going to go to trial. And there is, and Hargeet said it, this case has merit because they're the only competitor, which, by the way, is not even like the market leader by a pinch. They're the market leader by leaps and bounds. Okay. And here's what's interesting. They, like, if you remember, guys, they said that the Nintendo shouldn't and could not be used because they're, not the high end console. Well, they tried to use that against them, and it backfired because the cat said, "Well, your competition is really Xbox, not Nintendo." So one market is you can buy your games anywhere you want, digitally or physically, and one isn't. And if you compare the market caps, Sony is crushing. I mean, it is not even close in the UK. So this is why, Crispy, they find themselves seriously behind the 8 ball. Now, just look at some of the stuff that they have done. Talk about being, not being competitive or, anti-competitive, if you will. They just released their digital Slim, which happens to be $50 more than the original, which this new one is apparently cheaper to make, which is why they released it.
Oh, they bundled it with Spider-Man 2 as well, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They want to get you to buy Spider-Man 2 so they can compound those Spider-Man numbers. But they also in the same year raised PlayStation Network by $40, which is unbelievable. Now the only reason why you're seeing that The Last of Us 2 remaster has a $10 upgrade fee only, as opposed to you having to buy the whole game like you've had to buy some other ones, is because they eventually heard the cries of the people, and they're gonna eventually have to answer that. My question to you is this one of those moments that Sony not only finds themselves unable to block ABK, but because of that shenanigans? Remember, this lawsuit may not even happen if they just sign a deal with Microsoft from the start, and this deal's closed last year. No one's looking into Sony's books at this point. And well, now they've exposed themselves. Now they have literally opened up the doors and said, "This is what we're doing." People got wind of it. People didn't like it. And Hargeet actually said something. He's very surprised that this didn't come the way of the CMA or the cat. This actually had to come from a civilian. So now that the cat and the CMA are involved, the cat just literally just said, "Oh, there's enough here for a trial." I think they may have to do a big payout here. And if they do, well, any thoughts of acquiring anything, that's probably out the door. Let's talk about it.
What do you mean, Take Two or something?
Well, I mean, there's Take
dude,
Two,
there are
EA, there's Disney.
There are
I've heard they're
people
going to acquire.
There are people, like, when we say, like, and I've said this, Microsoft could acquire Netflix. That is possible. Like, and that would be a strategic value to what they're trying to do. Make a multifaceted multiverse type thing. So when you look at Sony, I mean, they've acquired the entire anime division of like anything. Like Crunchyroll and Funimation, like they've acquired it. Like if you're into anime, I mean, by all means. The problem I have is that they segregate everything. Like you own this, and you can't, have this as a stipulation to say, hey, like you become a PS Plus member, you get Crunchyroll and Funimation on top of it. You know what I mean? If you're into that, That's going to be great. And that's just going to be revenue. They're going to have a constant revenue stream because that person is subscribed to PlayStation Plus, even though they might be watching those two things more than actually playing games. And here's the issue. We're not talking about Spider-Man 2 anymore, are we? We're still talking about Redfall getting an update, or Grounded getting an update, or Starfield being snubbed. We're talking about Xbox games. This is what we used to do with PlayStation. Like 5 years ago, that was it. And we as Xbox fans would be like, come on, like you can't bring out one game like that. Like, what are we doing? And we've done that because we are willing to call out the brand that we love. And that is the difference. And now you're getting nothing but spend more money. I'll give you a product that isn't, it's half ass, as I shouldn't have said, but I did. And you look at it and you say, well, I've already got better on the other side. If you play or have played both consoles, that's the problem. I stopped playing PlayStation when they gave up on multiplayer. That is my hard line. They gave up on it. Bring me an example that an exclusive from PlayStation is multiplayer. I don't see it anymore. I've been asking for SOCOM for what it feels like 10 years. It's 5, but it's 10 years. Since I've been podcast, where's another SOCOM? And that's their problem. They're going games as a service, but they're trying to make new IP when they really have old IP that can do the same job, if not better. And that is where they're at. And they don't know how to distribute their wealth accordingly. They look at it like, how many times we were laughing at they're making electric cars and stuff. Where you heard about that recently? It's dead. They kill things like Microsoft used to. Microsoft has done things that I didn't feel they would ever do. Like stay with multiplayer, like stay with Game Pass. Things that I've seen them just throw to the curb. I still say Mixer could be something right now if they stuck with it. And Satya actually said we should have stuck with it. You know what I mean? Like these are the things like, you know, take your L and run with it and be logical and be like, you know what? Like if we would have went another year or two, this thing would be something. And we messed up. Windows Phone, he brought that up as well. This is the CEO of the company. You don't hear Jim Ryan say nothing. This dude's taking over Jim Ryan's job and he's the CEO of the company. What is he saying? Oh, we're going to correct the ship. We're going to make single player games. That might not be the route you need to do right now. That is up to them. That is up to Sony. I've given up on PlayStation. I need multiplayer games. That is my stance. I will stand on that hill until I'm done with podcasting. Okay? Bring me bring me a SOCOM. Please. Bring me a Resistance. I will try that out. And I never played any Resistance.
Resistance Fallen Man was amazing. I would say that one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games.
Bring me something. Give me something different, but is still in your wheelhouse. They have it in their freaking stable. Come on, man.
No, it's true. It's true. They definitely have lost their way. The days of weird Sony when they used to be really fun and they actually really led the
Twisted Metal. Come on, Boom. Twisted Metal. Give me
Twisted Metal's one of them.
Metal.
One of my favorite racing games of all time for Sony was Motor Storm. That's another one. That's a phenomenal racer that came out for the PlayStation 3 at launch. It was amazing. The second one was not bad. The third one was I think, was there a third? This was it with the only two. I think the second one was okay. The first one was phenomenal. They had put out a demo. I played the demo to the freaking the wheels fell off, literally. You know, I want to bring this back around to you, Hargeet, because obviously I don't know how far down the rabbit hole this attorney is going to take this, where you know Microsoft may be subpoenaed. You know, you just don't know. But I pulled up a piece of the story, and one of the statements from the claim. Now, Sony's lawyers in fact have responded, and they did argue at CAT that this is flawed, that according to them, and I quote, flawed from the start. But the Competition Appeal Tribunal, CAT, ruled that Neil's case could in fact continue, and said that that PlayStation players who had made purchases on the store after the case were filed in 2022, meaning that after the case was filed, 2022 through 2023, should be removed from the proposed claimant case. I don't know how that's going to change the amount of how many people bought after it was filed versus before. But Neil, who was the attorney, said in a statement that Tuesday's ruling was the first step in ensuring consumers get back what they're owed, and Sony did not immediately respond to a request for comment at the time of this writing. Now, just out of curiosity, Hargeet, obviously, we kind of painted a picture for Sony that didn't look good, right?
Yeah.
If they are tasked to return monies to 9 million people, it's not going to be $1 or $2. If a game is $70, and as a matter of fact, you know what? Let me read some of the super chats, because one of them actually has something to do with it. First of all, Jax82 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Returnal came out in 2021 and is still $70 in the digital store. Ghost of Tsushima came out in 2020 on sale. Am I going crazy here? So it's not on sale. It came out in 2020, and it's still a full priced game. That's exactly why this lawsuit has to happen, because there's no doubt that if this game or these games were available at other retailers, they could have been something like a Returnal should have dropped down to like $20, right? Because no one really bought that game. It sold decently, but not well enough. And that game could have sold more if it was cheaper. It's still $70 according to Jax82. That's pretty ridiculous. RC Polygon drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, this can be really good for Microsoft and consumers, as if Sony has to pay billions of dollars, that means less investment into third-party exclusives and lower budgets for their first-party games. And that's something that's something that absolutely can happen, because I will tell you the one thing that is definitely not going to happen, and that is any acquisitions of major publishers or developers, because if they get stuck with a near $8 billion bill because they overcharged consumers because they boxed out the competition, they're not going to have any extra money for acquisitions. Devastator 2000 has become a new channel member. Kind sir, thank you very much for supporting the channel. We here at Double Barrel Gaming truly appreciate it. And lastly, Highlander 001, generous friend of the program, drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says, now that this is going to court, they have to set aside $8 billion in case they lose. This is money they cannot use for PlayStation. Any thoughts to that, Hargeet?
Yeah, so I mean, okay, so as far as them acquiring stuff, that's a Sony thing, and maybe they still could. It's the part that's more interesting to me is near monopoly. That's an interesting term, right? Near monopoly.
Yes.
If a regulator is saying you have a near monopoly, okay, or maybe the lawsuit says that and the regulator agrees, you have to start thinking, is that going to be something used against them in an acquisition, right? So if they acquire something under the regulatory limits, right, it's like $20 million or something like that. Okay, that might not go through any approval, fair enough, right? But if they do go to something big, like I've been hinting that maybe we should think about, like, they opened up their dirty laundry to everybody, and there might be some pushback given their ridiculously large market share in specifically the EU, right? It just is that way, right? The UK, the EU, they have a very, very large market share. So some of that's an interesting little twist, right? So as far as like, this going forward, look, it's in Sony's best interest at this point to get to a table and just talk and say, what the heck can we do to get rid of this? Right. To make some sort of concession. And hopefully the person who's doing this is Neil, whatever his name is, says, well, you got to put stuff back on the stores, right? That's got to happen. And send 50 cents to all people that bought stuff, whatever, right? Whatever that number ends up being. So something along those lines, right? So I don't know if they continue this and keep pushing, because if they lose the whole thing, right? And then a judge could go further and say, no, that's cool, but here's the other, damages you owe. And you have to be careful with those kind of things. If you go to trial, it's a lot more of a potential hit for them, right? Generally, you like to get these things out of the way, right? Just work it out. Like
if it's that much, it's a class action.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Oh, over 7 billion. Like, yeah, that's class action. Like,
That's what it's filed as. It is a class action lawsuit, right? And so, look, you want to like settle this, not keep going.
It's going to take years, by the way, for these people to get paid. But I mean, at the end, if this lawyer is really involved and wants to do this and wants to prove a point, well, it's going to happen. I mean, we've seen this.
Keep going. Yep, I agree. And like, so Sony's got to weigh those options, right? Is how big of a chance do they want to take? They're seeing, like a regulatory authority is saying, there's merit to this. And so if that's happening, it's not unlikely that a judge would say the same thing. So you got to be careful, right? As far as acquisitions, I don't know if it'll happen or not. My main thing with that is I think they've opened up the fact that they're too big to keep acquiring. If they're going to continue this massive lead, and we just saw the sales numbers come out, and Sony is trouncing everybody. It's just the way it is, right?
It's facts, dude. The numbers. I mean,
so if you keep looking at that, it's like, well,
not actually making profit, by the way.
That's their problem, right? It's their problem to figure out profits, right? But they are, as far as the market, they're owning the market. They're beating Nintendo right now. They're beating Xbox handily, right? Especially in the European market. Like, well,
especially in the UK specifically.
Yeah. And at what point do you say, well, okay, if this is basically the console du jour, that's it, right? So then is this not a monopoly? Do we let them keep expanding? Do we not want competition? This lawsuit came up because competition isn't big enough to push Sony to say we have to compete the same way that the competition is doing things, right? So they can do this. They decided to do it, and tough luck if that's just the way it is. But if they were in heavy competition, they wouldn't be able to pull it off because the competition's allowing it, right? So, this is just part and parcel of it, right? So I'd be more concerned about that. But, I asked Hogue the same question, and he thinks like, it won't really matter. They'll just claim that the Nintendo thing was just a part of the other case, and we should ignore it here, and therefore Nintendo does compete with us, and therefore we should be able to buy whatever we want. It's like, okay, that's a possibility. We'll see, right? So, but with this saying near monopoly, I'm like, I don't know. Like, we've entered into weird territory. Once the ABK thing happened, we've entered into weird territory, right? Because normally the ABK thing would not have been an issue. It's a standard, vertical merger. You're just buying stuff to expand what you already have. You're not buying your competitor. So you would just let it go. But that didn't happen. Everybody said, oh, no, we got to take a look at this. And everybody, like outside of the FTC, said, okay, you're good to go. And the FTC is continuing their stupidity, but it doesn't matter. It's done. So I don't know whether we're in the same space. So for them to acquire stuff, a Sony, PlayStation to say, hey, we're going to acquire stuff when they have dominance everywhere in the world. Not even in the US can Xbox say, hey, we win. No. Even here, PlayStation is still the dominant platform. How do you say it's okay for them to keep making that platform even more dominant? So I don't know. I don't know if they can easily acquire. I think that's going to be an interesting hurdle. But we'll see. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe this is the way you get around things and say, well, we'll just take away your war chest of cash and put it towards lawsuits, and then you can't go buy something. I don't want that.
That's a Bethesda equivalent.
Yeah, it is.
In what they're getting sued.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. But we'll see. I don't know. I think that the major headache here is that there's text that says near monopoly, and the CMA agreed. I'm just like saying, I don't know. Like, I think that's something they should be concerned about. But we'll see what happens.
I mean that's a phenomenal point. And by the way, Kesante's PC kind of exploded on him. So he's trying to get everything.
Sucks.
Yeah, it does. So he's trying to get back. Yeah, I hopefully he doesn't mean like figuratively it exploded because that would be devastating. Hopefully he could get in here and we can continue the conversation. But Crispy Bomb, look, we kinda, I don't think anyone would have thought that this kind of thing could happen to Sony, but unfortunately for them, it has. They again, this all stems, and we all talked about it, folks. We all said it. They were going to potentially open themselves up. Well, actually, how it went down is we first said that Sony was burning bridges with other publishers and developers because what they were doing is bringing a lot of attention to gaming, which government usually didn't even care about, right? Government doesn't care about entertainment, but now specifically for gaming, now it's a hot topic. And Sony, what they did is they made it, I mean, we don't know because it hasn't happened yet, but what if someone like Take-Two tries to sell and they want to be acquired? I think Hargeet China was the one that was actually saying this. What if EA wants to sell? What they're too big to sell now? Would that be a problem? And unfortunately, what Sony did is they brought attention onto gaming, and by doing so, it seems to have all of this crying, all of this flying around, all of this. Oh, we have to block the deal because if we lose Call of Duty, we're going to be devastated. It opened their doors to this, and for years, we've heard people, including myself, call Sony anti-competitive, anti-consumer, and what's strange is there are some, and again, no names here, folks, but there are some Sony channels that actually went on record and said, "Hey, listen, for the next God of War, I'll pay $80, I'll pay $90 because I'll pay for quality.
You'll pay $1,000, right? Boom! Come on."
And here we are. They charge for literally everything. They charge you $550 for a digital PS5. They give you paper clips to keep it up, to hold up this nearly $600 device. And if you want to stand the console vertically, like most people do, you got to pay an additional $30. So it's these kinds of rakings of the coals that has now find themselves in trouble with the CMA. And like I said, there were a couple people in the chat like, "Oh, this is no big deal. This is not going to go anywhere." I don't know if Kat says there's enough to go for a trial. I think there's enough, and I think Hargeet's the one that said it, where they said the words monopoly. If you're considered a monopoly, I don't know. I think there's a lot of merit here. Anything else you'd like to add to this?
Sony killed Sega. I hate you for it. I hate you for it. That is it. You guys don't understand. I played Sega games on, freaking tabletop. I've played it on just straight arcade machines. I have played Sega games for years. Sony was nothing in my childhood. They didn't exist. Like, I felt the same as I feel about Microsoft then that I do as Sony then. They gave me the Walkman. Cool, that's listening to music. Great. The CD Walkman, as they called it at the beginning. Great. Awesome. I had a Gateway 2000 as a computer, which was high end back then, by the way. I played games like Test Drive Off-Road 2 and NBA Live 98 on that thing. Okay. I was all over the place. And the one thing I can tell you is that as I got into like true on console gaming, keep in mind before that I played Nintendo and all that. Console gaming died off for a smidgen of time. It was like 2 years. It just nobody wanted to have anything to do with it. But we didn't have social media. We had what our own thoughts had. Nah, the PC gaming right now is a little better. Thing that people don't realize is Microsoft's been developing games far beyond what Sony has. Sony bought all of their studios right now. They bought them all. Gaikai, remember that? That was a couple $100 million, and guess what? That's billions upon billions right now. Think about it. They literally said, Sega, get out of the realm. We're done with you.
Actually, what killed Sega is what they started doing is they started locking up content not to be on the Sega Saturn, not to be on the Sega Dreamcast. And when they did that, obviously, if you don't have the content, you're not going to sell consoles, even though they had an amazing launch lineup. And Sony ultimately boxed out Sega. That's exactly what happened. Now, again, I don't think Sony's going anywhere. I know there's a lot of people like, oh my God, they're going to go out of business. No, they're not. They're not going anywhere. I mean, King seems to believe there's not going to be a PS6. But, you know, that's a.
Well, what do we always say, Boom? The king has to fall at some point, and if they're good, they will come back up, and they will be better. But that's what we call out. And I'm sorry that PlayStation, like you're full on PlayStation. I am not full. I am a Gears fan. I love Gears. Xbox has its gripes. We've all called it out on this panel, even right now. You know what I mean? Like, we have to realize that I don't want Sony to go away. I don't want that. I want them to adapt and evolve and be better because of what they've witnessed in these past year. I mean, I'll just say a year. Like, it feels different, and you know, you can give us credit for being like, it's happening and we could feel it, but I don't care about that. I want people to have like this sustainability to look at things and be like, hey, I want to play that game. Here you go. Like, I'll be honest with you. I have thought about getting rid of Netflix many times, and I didn't, because you have the Stranger Things that come out. You have all these other things. You have these bangers, but then all of a sudden you find something else. You know what I mean? And you look at it and you're like, well, the first episode wasn't great. And then you watch the second episode and you're like, man, this is actually pretty good. I like it. This is what Xbox is trying to do. Say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, you might not like this. You might not like, you know, Starfield right off rip. But if you keep playing it, you might like it a little more.
Yeah,
but
if you like
it's there.
You're gonna like Starfield.
It's there. But it's there. It's in the service. You know what I'm saying? So if you feel like that type of way one day, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna F around and find out.
Yeah,
and then you go and find out, and you're like, man, this is actually pretty good. That's what I think they're trying to do. PlayStation, on the other hand, is not trying to do any of that. They're trying. Now they've reverted completely back. They're going to make single player games. I get it. I know you guys like it. Boom, you like it. I don't like it. I want to play a game for a year of my life like I've done with Gears, between all of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to, like, Halo. When you talk about Halo, I smile ear to ear. You have to understand that, because they've done something really incredible. And when I played that game the first time, I said, this game is polished, but I suck at it. That's what I said. Because at the end of the day, if that's your enjoyment and you're good at it, that's going to be even more your enjoyment. But I'll tell you right now, I've played a lot of multiplayer games, and that game is polished as far as multiplayer.
Dude, it's phenomenal. But you know something, Crispy? First of all, we got breaking news. Second of all, we got Kay Asante. His computer is somehow put together with tape and bubblegum. Kay Asante, what's up, brother?
Good evening. Good evening. Apologies. No, and I gave my PC the wrong business. It was actually I have a like a surge protector. You know, like it's supposed to, in case anything goes down, because it's Florida. You know, it's supposed to take the brunt of it and keep running. Yeah, it's the one that roasted, and it made it look like my PC was dead. So it's back up and running. We're good to go.
That's
all
good. Good.
I've been keeping an ear on the conversation while I've been putting my PC back together.
Yes. Yeah. Well, listen, first of all, we're glad that you're here. Obviously, Sony is facing a $7.9 billion mass lawsuit, but, and I got to give credit where credit is due, it's way too early on Twitter. Just dropped this into my my DM, and this is Hargeet, Crispy, Kay Asante. I think the dominoes are starting to fall because apparently Romania's antitrust regulators are now probing Sony. According to the story by CPI Competition Policy International .com, the Antitrust Authority of Romania has initiated an investigation into potential violation of competition regulations by Sony's European subsidiaries with regard to the distribution market of video game consoles. The competition console has stated that Sony may have engaged in anti-competitive practices by selling video game consoles compatible with its PlayStation only through its own online store, and by prohibiting other distributors from selling game activation keys for PlayStation compatible games. Holy shitballs.
What did I say? I'm surprised the regulators didn't do this. And there you go.
and okay, so we'll come back to the laughing Hargeet. Kay Asante, let's talk about this from a businessman's point of view. You weren't here before, but you were on many shows where we said this crying and whining was going to potentially come back and bite Sony in the ass, right? They were going to expose their dirty dealings to the regulators around the world, and they were going to see that they were doing these anti-competitive, anti-consumer behavior. We've talked about it. We've been called like nuts. Oh, you guys are just you guys just hate Sony. No, I don't hate Sony. I probably have more Sony products than most of their own fans. But it starts with one, and the dominoes start to fall. And we know that they're a dominant player in the market. I mean, so now there are two probes. Is there going to be a third, a fourth, a fifth, a 10th? What do you think, man?
So when this whole thing, I was planning on coming here and talking to you all and being that guy that's saying, hey, this is the canary in the coal mine, it's eyebrow raising. Let's wait and see what's going on. My plan was to come in here and go, much like Hargeet, and go, now if any regulators got involved, then we're talking, right? Because when business is involved, when business is talking about like class action lawsuits, it's an exercise of whose wallet is bigger, how long can you withstand this, right? And eventually they usually they give deference to the business, but they also don't take it seriously. They see that it becomes one of those repeating exercises until eventually everybody goes away not so happy because everybody gets $1 and change per user or whatever, right? But when a governmental body, when an agency of a country that you sell in has these concerns, and as Boom and the rest of us have been saying, you opening your mouth and saying stuff like this opens them to saying, oh, well, if these are the practices you use, maybe we'll use that against you later, right? Like they opened the door to this. We said this. This is us patting ourselves on the virtual back right now because we said exactly this, right? So seriously, I was gonna come here and say, look, guys, it's really interesting that someone out there is fighting the good fight. Jon Snow against the army, but I didn't see it wasn't gonna last good for him. This, on the other hand, oh boy, what interesting times we live in, right? Yes, I'm sure the rhetoric will be, Romania, how big are they? How much pull do they have? But it's one in a line of many that will have questions. And this, let's put this on Front Street. This is probably why Jim got retired. Like,
yeah, I said that before.
You put our dirty business out there.
Oh, could be,
Yeah.
man.
Because this is the problem. If the dominoes start to fall here, you've given them everything they need to come after you.
Yeah,
by trying to go
your
after
point,
them,
Kiyosante, is yes,
I know.
Romania may be small, maybe the
Yeah.
market is small, but one regulatory agency in Europe says
Yes.
this. The EU says, hold on a second, what's going on here? And then they start opening the investigation. Then I mean, that's a huge market.
Yeah.
And so then you can't ignore it, right? So it starts to become a problem for them. Then the UK gets involved, Japan gets involved, the US gets involved. That's just the way it is, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
we'll see.
Yeah. So I will be that guy that says temper your expectations, or I will be that guy that says, whoa, let's pump our brakes. It doesn't mean they're closing tomorrow.
Oh, no one's suggesting that at all. Yeah, of course.
But the fact that a regulatory body has gotten involved, you can't shoo them away real quick with some money. Right. That class action lawsuit, you can shoo them away real quick with some money and they go away and they're hopefully happy. Regulatory body, you cannot shoo with a little bit of money. Right. So that is going to be super interesting. So that last breaking news part, that's where my eyebrow just got raised. And I'm just like, hey, now that might be a whole different set of circumstances at this point. Yeah.
So, Hargeet, I want to go back to you because I know that there were some people in the chat, and I know some people online are saying, "Well, it's Romania, Boom. Like, come on, they're a small country." But does that mean that they don't matter? Because you actually just said something.
Yeah,
now,
it doesn't. It matters.
Right now, the cat looked at it. The words "monopoly" were used, and they said there was enough here to bring this to trial. Right now, this is coming from a person representing 9 million consumers. Right, these kind of things happen all the time. Right, but it still had to go in front of the CMA and the CAT.
Yep.
And they said there's enough here for a trial. We're going to push it forward. Okay, so now we get the story where Romania's antitrust regulators have got involved. And the second part of the story says this: the Competition Council has received indications that Sony may have engaged in anti-competitive behavior by only selling PlayStation-compatible video games, game consoles through its online store. The investigation is focused on several European subsidiaries of Sony, including Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe Limited, Sony Interactive Entertainment Network Europe Limited, and Sony Interactive Entertainment Direct Europe Limited. Yeah, dude, that's kind of a big deal because I think you're onto something. If the EU gets wind of this, they're going to be like, wait a second. The CMA got involved. The CAT got involved. We have another regulator that's part of us that got involved. We got to take a look at this. How could this actually spiral out of control?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Romania, I believe, is part of EU, is it not?
The EU, yes. The EU, yes.
If it is, yes, they can do their own thing, but ultimately they defer to the EU for all these regulatory matters. So whatever they come up with is going to get sent to the EU. So it's, if they actually come out and say, yeah, there's a problem here, it's going to go back to the EU. So you're not looking at just little Romania. You're looking at the European Union, the economic, European Economic Area, right? That is a huge market. and suddenly they're saying you've got a problem, Sony, and here's what you need to start doing. No, this is not a joke, right? So any member state of the EU decides to do this, it's the EU that's doing it. Like, you just have to accept that it's going to go to the EU at some point, because they all agree that they're all member states of the EU, and the EU regulatory agency controls what the EU economic zone does, right? So this is not a joke. It's a big deal. If this goes through and they get some sort of hit, it's an EU hit.
By the way, Hargeet, they also don't have their buddy Jim there, who knows people at the EU in those regulatory boards,
right,
to help out anymore.
I know Sony has great lawyers and all that. They'll figure all that out. But like, if the regulatory agency is opening this up on their own, they're seeing something. That's what this isn't a, hey, we made a transaction that we need to actually investigate. You went and bought a massive publisher or something. No, they're saying you're violating the law. We're checking you out, right? So there's a lot of implications for this. If this is true, yeah, wow, it's not a joke.
Pixelbit G and the
rest of the world's gonna be doing it too.
Yeah, I think so. So I have a question for you, because this comes away for you, Hargeet. It says, and this comes. Pixelbit G asks, "Will if this thing does like really go all the way, will they have to break Sony and PlayStation up?"
No, it doesn't have to be that way. They will find some ways to say, "Hey, you've broken this rule. You will have to change what you're doing." If it gets to the point that they realize, hey, this is too big within our territory and we have to regulate you, there is a potential for something like that, but you'd have to break up PlayStation itself somehow. The better thing to do is say, let's regulate PlayStation, right? So they might put more, I guess, checks and balances on what they can and can't do, right? So that's a more likely outcome. It's generally not something where they try to break things up, off the bat. They're going to try to find remedies. European Union is better about that. They'll go for behavioral remedies instead of saying, let's try to destroy the company, right? That's not really what they want to do. So if it was the CMA, they generally hate behavioral remedies. That's a whole other story. So we'll see when that approaches. If that happens, that's a whole other headache, right? If the CMA decides to latch onto this, they're oh boy, are they gonna that's a whole other headache for them. But.
Okay, so right now it is currently being looked upon by the CMA and the CAT, right? And now this is a consumer-based lawsuit, right? That's where it is there right now. For the CMA, for the UK, which obviously is represented by the CMA, and the tribunal is, of course, the CAT. It's currently a consumer lawsuit.
Yep.
Now with Romania involved, it is now an investigation by a regulator. Now that regulator is a part of the bigger part of the EU. The EU themselves may what happened. What I think we're trying to explain to the listeners. We got almost 600 people here. Thank you so much for hanging out. If Romania saw something, they probably had to report this to the bigger EU. And what's going to ultimately happen is the dominoes are going to fall, and then every territory is going to want to get involved, because there might be a bigger problem here, not just in Romania. So you say, okay, what happens next? Well, if those regulators get involved, both the EU and the UK, I think you said it, Hargeet, Japan might have to get involved, because right now they have a 98% market versus an Xbox. 98%. That's a monopoly, right? I mean, that's a freaking monopoly. I don't and their own words, Crispy Bomb, are going to be used against them, because if they try to say Nintendo, they just finished trying to sell all of these regulators that Nintendo shouldn't count because they're last gen tech. They don't matter. Nintendo doesn't matter. It's just Xbox. It's us versus Xbox. And if it's just them versus Xbox, Crispy Bomb, well, they're beating Xbox 2-1, 3-1, 10-1 in some places. Japan, 100 to 1, right? I mean, it's pretty crazy. And this all stems from the ABK deal. We saw the writing on the wall, and here it is. What are your thoughts on this new story with Romania?
I mean, it's part of the European Union. This is clearly the first step for them to be like, you effed around and found out. Because if everybody remembers, they were the first ones that said, nah, we ain't about this. Because, yeah, you could say like South America or something like that. Like, respect the hell out of them. Like, they did it before everybody else. But this is a revenue stream for both companies. And the EU is like, nah, we're good. You understand what I'm saying? And the problem that Sony faces is that they went into the US market, which, what have we said many times to them? To US companies that happen to be into gaming, that are technically, they're not linear, they're more or less like developer and console maker. And there was an argument about that. Well, all of that came out in the FTC trials. I mean, really look at it. Think about it. Okay? Like, if you've done the research like we have, you understand that there's a lot of things said that can't be taken back. Because there's one thing about the court of law in America, it's always on record. And they always type it out. And it's always there. And you said it. And those are things that Sony's looking at right now. Because these other countries, everybody looks to America. You know what I'm saying? Even now, even though we feel like we're in the worst situation right now, they always look to America. And they say, okay, well, what's happening right now? I mean, they're still technically trying to sue, but it's already been destroyed by court judges that are like up there. Like, what are you going to go to Supreme Court? Oh, guess what? They already did. Anybody remember that? They already did. It's ridiculous. Like, Sony put themselves in this situation because they called out things that are an oxymoron. They did it themselves years ago. And on top of that, as far as console sales, they're the king and the cream of the crop. And that is it. Okay? And they didn't deny it. They didn't try to throw shade at it. Maybe revenue right now is Microsoft. But guess what? Sony, you laid all your cards out, and that's why they fired Jim Ryan, because he kept going with it, and they believed in him. And I'll give him credit for that. I believe they believed in what he was doing. But at the end of the day, you have no leg to stand on. You have nothing to contribute to society. Game Pass is a contribution to the entire gaming community, but also people community. These people that have never played a game before might have said, well, Game Pass is trending. Let me go there. These are things that happen within our society. We are at the point where social media has brought us to this realm that says, is this trending? I'm going to try it. And some of those people that tried it said, man, this ain't bad. This is good. I'm going to tell you right now, how is Netflix, even though they keep charging more, still a thing? Because they have variety. They have something for everybody. That is something that PlayStation doesn't have. This is what I've been calling out for a long time. I've been calling out, bring me some multiplayer. Bring me the exclusive that has that. You know what I mean? Like, bring me something different. But it doesn't have to be crazy different. It just has to be a little different. It's
Well,
been so long.
dude, I don't know what's going on at Sony. We thought that they were in a tailspin prior to this now lawsuit and now this open investigation where it's going to potentially be a Pandora's box. There's just no doubt about it. Que Asante, okay, so the EU is ultimately involved. How far down the rabbit hole, we don't know. It's just one country just yet, and obviously we can expect others. Okay. But doesn't this make the FTC just look like a bunch of boobs? Like they're still trying to fight the ABK thing, even though it was approved in every other country around the entire planet. They somehow feel that this is not good for consumers. And there's now this open investigation and lawsuit against the people that they were literally defending in trial, where they were like, well, PlayStation, the Santa Claus skin, right? I mean, the stupidity of it all. It's unbelievable. I mean, wow. What do you? First of all, what we heard what you said about Romania. What are your thoughts about the actual lawsuit with the consumers? Do you think there's any value there?
So for me personally, there is definitely value there, right? There is some validity there, because as Hargeet said, it's been put in front of a judge. Judge looked at it and said, "Hey, it's worth its day in court. Let's go take a look at it." Right. The reason why I was my thought was to first advocate for some to just to quell your potential fire on that is the fact that these things happen all the time, and then they go through a lot of a rigmarole, and it takes, as has already been said, it takes many years, and it's dumbed down considerably, and then that huge number that was initially sticker shock, oh my god, gets whittled into dust, right?
And nothing.
And it turns into like $1.50 for anybody who's ever like touched the controller.
It usually does,
something disgusting like that, right? So that's why I was like, while it's interesting, because it definitely is interesting, right? Someone on their own filing a class action lawsuit inherently is not interesting, because anybody can do that. Anybody can do that at all, right?
Right.
But then for it to pass the first phase where a judge looks at it and says, "Nope, we're not getting rid of this thing. It's worth its day in court." That makes it interesting, right? And now, of course, adding the Romania situation to the mix as well, that makes it very, very interesting. Like now, the question is this brand new? Was this bubbling in the background? Is this something that they were worried about when Jim was flying and lying and dance moving? Because we were worried about it. I mean, we here who are just a bunch of podcasters who keep a close eye on this stuff. We saw that's one of the first things we said, right? Some people were like, "Oh, well, they're being weak." I don't care their weakness. They can use whatever strategic advantage they want to get what they need to get. But when you leave the door open, others can walk through it, right? That's the problem. When you show your hand, now others can use the hand that you've shown to possibly use that against you later, right? I said the same thing on this air before. These are what I will consider Odin moves for those who played Ragnarok. You know what I mean? You smile in my face and you stab me in the back is what they're doing. Right? and they're presenting documents. They're presenting hard evidence, because at that time they were convinced that they could take a thumb in the eye of Zeus, as it were, right? But clearly they miscalculated. The deal is done, but that doesn't mean, hey, nothing to see here. All those documents that we shared now get unshared. No, it's part and parcel of the process now, right? So I really expected this, like as Hargeet said, like I really expected this to come from the regulatory bodies, right? But usually, until you bring yourself to the firing squad, they just kind of like, they'll sit back and watch, right? They won't come to you with this unless you specifically say, "Hey, I'm buying somebody," or you ask for regulatory approval. Then the floodgates open, right? But in this instance, you have one overzealous, possibly regulatory body, small body, but by virtue of them being connected to the EU proper, they have a lot of teeth, right? They can bring it to the they could bring it to The Hague, as it were, and have it be a thing and have it actually be something that gets attention across the board, right? So I still wouldn't say, you know, it's over or this is a big, huge, like horrible mess. I would say now we really need to watch this space. Now we really need to pay attention and see, does this go away? Does Romania become one regulatory body in the darkness, or does this start that ball rolling? Because the minute you hear another regulatory body has taken up this exact mantle, it's over. It is really over. Right now, I'm like, we shall see. But if we get another one, it's a problem at that point. Yes.
Hargeet, before we move on to the second topic, and obviously what we're going to get into is the celebrating the 10th anniversary of Killer Instinct. They had a live stream today, and we got some information on what they're going to be doing. You know, Iron Galaxy is the one that's going to be obviously taking over the reins, as they did for seasons 2 and 3. And now they're back. I personally think, even though it hasn't been announced, I think Iron Galaxy is now owned by Xbox Game Studios. That's just a thought, because when they first announced that they were back, they said they had plans for the next 10 years of Killer Instinct, which suggests that they're permanently going to be working on it. And how do you do that? You buy them, because what wound up happening was, if you were unfamiliar with why there wasn't a season 4, was that they were hired, Iron Galaxy, to do another game by a different publisher, and they had to work on that game because that's what they were paid for. And then they tried to launch their own free-to-play game, which, you know, it had great great ideas. It just unfortunately didn't hit. So they wound up having to close the game down, and now they're back. And what wound up happening originally is that they did such a great job, there was no one else that could pick up Killer Instinct and do it. Phil Spencer has talked about it. He said that him and Matt Booty talk about it all the time. They just need to find the perfect developer. Well, now they're back. And I think that, so this doesn't ever happen again, they will have Iron Galaxy be the developer of Killer Instinct. We'll talk about what they announced, what it means, and what the future of the one of the best fighters in gaming is, which is an Xbox exclusive for PS, by the way. But Hargeet, I just want one quick question. I'm curious. You said something earlier that I did not know. You said something to the effect that if one European regulator gets involved, it's almost as if all of them eventually will be involved. Is that how it works?
So most of the member states don't do their own; they just let the EU do it.
Okay.
Romania is special in that they still have their own, but they work in concert with the EU, right? So if whatever they come up with in their territory holds for the larger EU, the larger EU will have to look at it and say, okay, yes, this is something we need to look at as well. And that bridge, as far as like what happens there, right? So if Romania says, yes, this is a problem, here are the stipulations we have on Sony in PlayStation to mitigate that, then the EU will look at it and say, okay, does that apply to the rest of the economic area? If it does, then we're going to latch onto it. And it's not just Romania anymore. Now it's EU doing it as well, right? So now it's a much larger headache, right, for PlayStation. So the little difference is that, like, hey, this is a small country. It's not that small, but it's a small country as far as their revenue. So if they dock them or something, maybe they'll just pay the fines and say, we don't care. It's when it bridges from, hey, this also applies to the EU, then those fines would be so exorbitant. They would have to fix it, right? There's just no way around
it. Obviously does as well.
So and it's the same. Yeah, exactly. If it applies to the UK, it 100% applies to EU. So yeah, it's going to, right? So, but yeah, that's the headache they run into.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad that you were able to just kind of paint the picture for us regarding what would happen if the bigger EU gets involved, and ultimately they probably are going to get involved.
Yeah.
So, folks, I want to talk about Killer Instinct. Obviously, I talk about it all the time. It's one of my favorite IPs that Microsoft has done nothing with. It launched 10 years ago today for the Xbox One launch. It was, I mean, it's like, for instance, when I was watching that E3 that everyone hated, everyone's like, oh my God, 2013, I hate that E3. Right? I jumped out of my chair, like literally out of my chair, nearly hitting the ceiling when I heard the music. I couldn't believe they were bringing it back. Like, holy cow, Killer Instinct's coming back. Are you kidding me? And for me personally, I mean, I was there in the arcades when it first came out. Like, I used to go with my brother to Nathan's Arcade on Central Avenue in Yonkers, New York, when they had this monster arcade, like 200 plus cabinets. And it was the loudest cabinet in the whole thing. Like, you know, obviously anyone in the chat is old enough to, arcades really don't exist anymore. They're barcades, but arcades, they were very loud, right? They were packed with people. This game was so freaking loud that you heard it over everything. So today was the 10th anniversary stream. Iron Galaxy obviously is going to take over development duties. And on this 10th anniversary update, what they announced, Hargeet, was that there's an updated and streamlined Killer Instinct that is coming to Xbox, PC, and Steam. Steam now includes a free-to-play base Killer Instinct. They're going to rotate the characters. Now there is they have something called the KI Anniversary Edition. It's a premium upgrade. It's $30, right? In this premium upgrade, you get all 29 fighters with premium content included, VIP double XP boosters, specialty holiday accessories, and more for the characters. But if you own the game on Xbox, you will get this for free. And that has been confirmed by Clobriel. And this is what Clobriel had to say. Killer Instinct Anniversary Edition has been announced for Xbox and PC. If you own Killer Instinct Definitive Edition, you will receive this edition for absolutely free. No $10 upgrade like you would, you know, get clobbered over the head by Sony. No, if you already own the game, you own the Killer Instinct Definitive Edition, you will get this for free. Okay, so one of the things that we are, it almost seems, again, that they're going to take it down this road is that, yes, this is going to be a free-to-play game. This is going to be a gas game. Because you don't have to buy the game. They're going to have characters that rotate out weekly that you can play. There's going to be a subset of characters you can play. Obviously, you can buy the characters separately, or you could just buy the anniversary edition and get all 29 characters. This obviously is going to lead into a Killer Instinct 2. I don't know when that is going to happen. I would imagine that those plans are being put together literally as we speak. They have updated what we currently have in Killer Instinct to kind of, you know, get the fans excited. It's got the 10th anniversary upgrade. Where do you kind of fall with this being another potential gas game success? When you look at, I mean, look what's happening with, and obviously Sony and Jim Ryan, who's no longer the CEO, wanted to take PlayStation in this direction. Nintendo doesn't really have this, but they just have a bunch of games that are on there that are free to play that people just play and they enjoy it. They have Apex Legends, they have Fortnite, whatever, right? But the one that seems to be doing it right and got a lot of slack for it, it took them quite a bit of a journey to get where they are now. I mean, Microsoft, when it comes to gas games, Hargeet, is hitting on all cylinders. You have Halo Infinite that has come back in a monster way, right? Like, it is the best Halo that I have played since Halo 3. Grounded just got a monster update, right? They're getting Forge for Grounded. You're going to be able to build your own Grounded content. Bonkers, right? Sea of Thieves consistently is getting updated. There's even a single player, PvE, that's coming to I think it's supposed to come out in December, if I'm not mistaken, which is when I'm going to get involved, because I'll be able to just hang out by myself. Don't worry about getting robbed by a bunch of trolls, which happened to me in real life. It's not funny, but it happened. It actually is funny, but it happened, and I don't like it. And now Killer
I
Instinct.
laugh because if you ever listen to Zocker play that game, that's what he does. He goes with his buddies, and that's what they do.
Zocker,
They go and
yeah.
rob everybody else. It's so funny.
Okay, so Hargeet, I don't know if you ever heard the story. I'm going to tell it real quick. 2 seconds, folks. Sea of Thieves, normally not my game, right? Because I don't. Isn't because I'm antisocial. It's just I don't have the time. It's just time is really the problem. So I can't play a game for 3 hours. I just can't do it. So I usually go and I play a game by myself and I do the thing. So I actually wound up getting 3 treasure chests by myself. Killed a bunch of skeletons. I threw them on the little boat thing, and I'm rowing back in, whatever. And it's great. I feel like I'm accomplished something. So I get back, and I'm, I don't know, maybe 20 feet away from cashing this first chest in, and 4 jerks come out, beat me down, and take my shit. And I was like, you know what? F you, Sea of Thieves. I just wasted 2 hours. I'm never doing this again. And that actually happened. But see, now with this new update, I won't have to do that.
I mean, if you had to think of a game with piracy, I mean that
I know. I know.
It, right?
I actually had someone reach out to me and be like, "Hey, Boom, you know, FYI, it's a pirate game." I'm like, Jesus, I know it's a pirate game, but I mean, come on, there's no honor among thieves for crying out loud. So,
No.
There is not, folks. So honestly, let's talk about Killer Instinct, because I'm very excited. This is when you look at Mortal Kombat, right? And you see that every time a Mortal Kombat comes out, they sell it at $70. We all buy it because, well, it's NetherRealm Studios. It's Mortal Kombat. It's going to be good. Mortal Kombat 1 in the backlog, but everybody that I watched play that game, it's breathtaking. The first character pack, phenomenal. Like literally every bad guy you could possibly want there is there, and it's great, right? When you look at the characters that Microsoft own in IP, we're talking limitless potential here. We're talking everything from Master Chief to Doom Guy to BJ Blazkowicz and Wolfenstein. They all would make great fighters, but if you really want to go and take some deep cuts, you could turn around and you can get a Joanna Dark in there. She fits perfectly. You can get the someone from Fallout, maybe the power, or somebody in the power armor. It would be pretty incredible. Diablo.
Warcraft.
I mean, yeah. I mean, so
StarCraft.
Let's talk about that. I mean, is this a big deal for Xbox gamers?
So, like, a few years back, people seemed to think that to play fighters, you needed to be on PlayStation, and I would challenge them, like, what's PlayStation's fighting game? If you said Nintendo, I'd understand. They got Smash Brothers. It's huge. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, what is PlayStation's fighting game, right? And it's like what you're saying, Crispy. Like their depth of games, it's the same bloody game. You get shooters, you get third person games.
We get Tekken on both consoles,
right? Like, so, you get an RTS, you get fighter, you get they pick all the genres. They have everything. They got from Minecraft all the way to freaking Call of Duty. Like it's they have the breadth of everything. Now they're gonna bring back their fighting game, and it's a pretty good fighting game, right? And so if I had to pick if I had to say, here's a console you want to pick to play fighting games, well, all those Japanese fighters that were not coming to Xbox, they're on Xbox now. Some of them are even in Game Pass.
Blue Blaze,
Guilty Gear, and so all those things are here now, right? So now tell me where PlayStation fits in all this. What's their fighting game? They don't have one. If you want a great multiplayer shooter, Xbox has got you covered with exclusives and multiplats, right? You've got Halo, you got Gears, and then you got Call of Duty. You get all these games, right? So, but hey, if you want to play those games, guess what? They're available to you on this platform, and you got exclusives that are great as well. They cover all the bases. It's just so Yep, it's great that they should just lock that studio up and buy them. And
Yep.
not have this problem anymore. And just let it keep going, right? And there's so much potential for this to keep growing and growing, right? And potentially whatever game that they had come up with, maybe that actually would work better if it was in Game Pass, right? So if they have other concepts, great. Just like NetherRealms, like they were going between Mortal Kombat and what's that? The superheroes one. When there's
Injustice.
the Injustice. Yep, Injustice.
Yes.
So they were just flipping between the two of those. I'm sure there's potential for it's Iron Galaxies, right? That they could flip between a couple of different genres and like have different type of assuming they want to stick with fighting games, right? So look, it's good that this is happening. You're gonna have continuous content. Yet another games as a service game. Oh, and if you happen to be a Game Pass subscriber, you get the full edition as part of Game Pass. So if you got Game Pass, you're covered. You get all the characters, everything, right? What else do you want? Like this is Xbox's proposition. If you've got a game genre, they've got you covered, right? If there's something you want to play, they've got you covered. If it's a puzzle game, there's puzzle games. If there's walking, simulator games, they've got that. You've got your Telltale type games like Tell Me Why and so
Yes.
Those are exclusives for Xbox, right? And Dusk. What was it? As
Dusk Falls.
Right?
Another one.
Again, they're trying to cover every base. If you like those kind of games, we're good. If you like, shooters, you're good. If you want, big adventures, they've got freaking Bethesda Game Studios, right? You just go on and on and on. They've got They've got Indiana Jones coming, right? So this is they just cover all the bases. And this is yet another base that everybody kept complaining about. Like, where's KI? Where's KI? Here you go. now you got it back. And every other fighter, it's there. Street Fighter skipped with 5. Not this time. Street Fighter 6
Right.
available to you. Play it all to your heart's content, right? You got Mortal Kombat, you got Tekken coming. This is it's the platform to play almost everything you want. Now the question is, will people come to the platform? I don't know. The sales don't show that. We'll see, right? They have to make the case to those who don't realize it, especially in the EU, especially in Asia, right? Hey, you need to come to Xbox if you want to play everything, right? And here's all the different varieties of stuff that we give you. And oh, by the way, you can pay us, $17 a month and access all of it. You don't have to buy the games, access all of it. Have fun, right? So just something that hopefully they can keep pushing forward with it. But yeah, great news today. Hopefully they do just acquire the studio and don't have this problem in the future. So if that's the case, we can look forward to a lot of content for this game. And as you pointed out, Boom, there's so many characters, right? They were already lining up stuff for other seasons that got all kind of pushed to the side because the studio went away, right? So they can start bringing that back up and then say, okay, cool. Now we have all sorts of new stuff we can bring in. You got years of new content ready to roll, right? That they just have to start balancing those characters, right? To make sure they don't get, either squashed or too powerful, right? Whatever. So it's good stuff. There's a lot of fun to be had with that, right? So we'll see what they do with it. But yeah, yet another live game, right? Yet another, genre that is not covered by PlayStation. It is covered by Nintendo, to be fair, right? They have Smash Brothers, but it is not covered by PlayStation. But yeah, so yeah, I'm continuously impressed with what they're doing. Like Phil is just going after everything. It's pretty good, right? So let's see if they keep it up. I hope the pressure is always on and they keep pushing for more and more stuff, right? So we want to have a hungry Xbox, so they keep giving us more value.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, after the whole ABK thing, it's just, like I said, I think that there's even a place for Ghost from Call of Duty as a fighter, right? Like, why not? That would be pretty dope. And speaking of fighters, Crispy Bomb, I think
you guys like this game Prototype, right? There's a character.
Yeah, dude, I want Prototype right now, but yes, that would be an amazing character. Crispy Bomb, I think you might, I think, folks, I'm not sure, he might be a fan of Gears. Not sure, but he'll confirm it for us. Wouldn't it be pretty dope to get like Marcus Phoenix in there as one of the fighters, bro? Like, honestly, just so good. This is great news. They continue to push the envelope. I think Hargeet really painted a great picture here that Xbox is just pushing the boundaries of every genre. All we need now is a Banjo-Kazooie, and then I'm good. What are your thoughts about maybe seeing characters from Gears as fighters? I mean, Marcus seems to be almost like a guarantee.
I mean, you can go any way. You could be like Carmine. I mean,
Carmine, yeah,
the-
the
the-
Carmine.
the-
What about a zombie Dom? That would be kind of dope.
you know what I'm saying? Like there is a lot, and if you didn't play the OG but not OG Killer Instinct for Xbox, it had General Rom on there.
Yes, it sure did. Yep.
It had what was it, Leonardo? I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No, it had one of the Battletoads. One of the Battletoads it had.
Oh no, yes, I'm sorry. No, I thought it had a not
It
Leonardo.
never had the turtles. It had one of the Battletoads. Yeah.
Okay, all right, but
Rash,
I mean,
it had.
Yes, you're right. That's the point. Like they've had guest characters, and that's, I mean, if you ever played as a Terminator, like even though the voice sucks, I mean, well, let's be honest. You ever played Terminator and MK11?
Yes.
Damn, it's close. Like if the voice was on point, I mean, you could have had Noof Nukem do it, and it would have been better. If the voice but like, dude, like John Rambo.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and they had people doing different voices, and it's like, well, damn, like, John DiMaggio, that's going to be, Marcus Phoenix. He's not going to live forever. He did like a bunch of TV shows and stuff. Like he was Bender from Futurama. Like the dude has like a great range, even though he's like a very deep voice, kind of like myself. So I kind of enjoy that. But I mean, let's be honest here. Like, why not dedicate a Sobo? What have they done for a long time?
Well,
Plague Tale and Flight Sim. Those are the two big games.
But what is owned by Microsoft? I caution people to say that like it's going to be purchased. You know what I'm saying? Because they've proven their work. Like we want a little old school. We want ultra. You know what I'm saying? Like we want a little old school in there, and they didn't give that to us in 2013. They gave us something that felt like something that if we had now, we wouldn't be mad about it. Like a free-to-play game with you have to buy the characters. That was the problem back then. They've experimented for a long time.
That's what used first with that too.
And they've screwed up and they've taken the L. This is a prime example. But at the end of the day, from what I've played and also what I've seen from people that had all these characters that I didn't have, that paid for them, I've seen a spectacular fighting game that has legs to stand on. And then you bring in a Doom guy that would meld perfectly with this universe and everything else. The universe is yet to be truly established. And I think there's a lot of legs to stand on and say, okay, now we bring in this person. We bring in Banjo. We bring in this person. You go full on. You go almost, Smash Brothers or something like that, but have your own, narrative of how the game is played. And it almost feels Mortal Kombat. Imagine ripping off Banjo's like arm and just like smashing him in the face with it. That would be the greatest thing ever. I'm sorry. Like if you're playing as like, some other character, Doom guy, something, you are that god. Because if you play Doom Eternal or Doom 2016, you feel like a god. But at the same time, it's a challenge. And that's the whole point. And it's like, you know, you do an execution like you would do in Gears, and it's a fatality, but you don't call it that. You call it an execution because you don't want to copy the greatest. You gotta mimic. You gotta be smart about it. And I think it'd be a magical experience to have like certain segments that you could take like from the game itself that you played, like Doom Eternal, and just like have this one like scene come up, and it's a fatality, but really it's an execution because you can change it all the time. And that's after the Ultra. Like it would require so much like thought process of like going through the move set to make that game ridiculous to you. And that's what I experience on Gears all the time. I do things that most people will be like, what the hell did you just do? I don't understand. And I'm just like, well, I did a roadie strafe to a wall bounce and back and forth. And then I executed you with the rip your head off and football punt. That's what I did. And then they'd be like, what are you talking about? I just hate that you did it to me. That's what I'm saying. Like, I remember doing ultras.
I don't want them to change Killer Instinct from what it is. It's a unique fighter that combo.
But end it, yeah. But if you end it on like a almost fatality note, because they got close to that in KI too. They really did. Like I played as Cinder many times, and they got to that point, and you would do an ultra into like a super ultra, and it would be like a 30 hit combo, and then you'd go into this ending, like, you know what I'm saying? Like nowadays, I feel like it would actually, like, I gotta be able to do that. I gotta be able to do that, and it would get people into the game even more because it's 10, 15 years, you know, difference. Like people change their minds, but they also come back to things that, you know, if you're into fighting, you might actually love that. And I think that's where Xbox gets it right, but gets it wrong. Like you've stuck with what Halo Infinite, prime example. We stuck with what we stuck with. And I'll tell you right now, I'm the first one to say, even though I don't play the game, when I have played it, that game is smooth as butter. Yeah. And that was like 2 years ago. I mean, seriously.
Well, I'll say this before, because we are running a little late, so I do want to bring Kesanthi in and get his hot take. I will say personally, for me, I don't want them to change. And Killer Instinct needs to be what Killer Instinct is. And I'm glad that that Iron Galaxy's back. I want Mortal Kombat to stay. Let Mortal Kombat with its fatalities and and everything else be what it is. I don't know if that would work well for Killer Instinct, and I think a lot of fans would be turned off if it was anything different than what it was. That's just my hot take, but we'll see, because obviously if you want to you want to stay current. I'm imagining they're going to want to bring some sort of differentiality to it. I just don't want it to be like, I don't know if I would be. Oh, I don't care. Like
that's where I say executions, Boom. Like I'm not. Well, like you pick your, how you're going to end it. Like, yeah, it might be 3 or 4. Fatalities. Hey, I do this certain move set, and that's what I get. Like you can do a friendship, whatever else, but like. That's what we do in Gears at this point. Like, I can pick what I kill somebody with, but that's in a shooting game. Yeah, having it in a fighting game, I think it would be next level. To be honest with you.
Yeah, it's possible. Real quick, I do want to do an update, because someone actually just DM'd me talking about the story that we talked about. Apparently, and again, folks, you got to remember, I'm doing this like live on the air. I can't read through the entire story. The Sony story with Romania, apparently this investigation was announced May 30th of 2023. So that current investigation is ongoing. So I'm gonna
that's have to, even worse, actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig further into it. But the fact of the matter is that Romania's antitrust regulators are now probing Sony. what happened since May 2023, May 30th, would you might say June 1st? I honestly don't know. But the story is here, and you got to remember, apologies that I thought it was breaking news because I didn't hear of it. I'm reading it live on the air, so I just want to clarify that. That was brought to my attention by, hold on just a second, let me just find out who was that. That was Cast 360X. And so he's just letting me know. So thank you so much for the correction. I definitely want to keep this, transparent as possible, but that's what's going on. And obviously now, if that is something that they're still investigating, which we know that these probes take, sometimes 6 months, even a year to from start to finish. And now they have this class action lawsuit in the UK with the CMA. Maybe it will turn into something bigger. Who knows? But Kay Asante, let's get your hot take on the Killer Instinct and that 10th anniversary stream. I know you didn't watch it. I didn't watch it because I was, I'm helping Mrs. Boom get ready for tomorrow, the big day. I'm interested to get your hot take on another major IP getting the games as a service treatment. And of course, if you are an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, you're going to get all the goodies.
So I will push back and say it's not another Game Pass game getting a games as a service. I would actually call this one the first.
You know what?
They've been doing
so.
They were gas before gas was a thing, right? They've always done this.
Yeah.
Right. They were the first to experiment with different business models, free to play, rotating characters, bring in different characters, right? It's always been really cool for them to have started that way. And yeah, if people who remember the game recall, at some point people were complaining, right? People were, this is not great, and this season's this and that season's that. And then eventually they caught their stride and they really got into it. And then of course, the minute they caught their stride, of course, what happened? The studio was taken away on something else and the game fell apart and all of that, right? So I will push back on that and say that they were there first, and now I'm super excited that they're back. The thing that I think is super interesting about what is being said here, and Hargeet actually touched on it, it's super interesting. Like their competitor has always benefited from the default. They benefited from default. That's just literally what it was, right? Oh, Sony has the market cornered. Oddly enough, I was actually talking to a couple people last couple of days that are not within the hardcore, good gaming community circles. These are just normal people, like normal moms and dads and people who also game. And like to what Crispy Bomb is saying right now, where are the multiplat? Where are the multiplayers? They play them on PlayStation, right? It's very strange. We see that they don't have there's a huge gap there, right? But for the Destiny 2 player and the Call of Duty player and the Apex Legends player and the, name your popular multiplat that they all play on PlayStation, it fills the gap for them so well. They have benefited from default, like, to the point about what Hargeet is saying about what is their shooter, their fighter. They've never had one. They've had the benefit of not having their fighter, right? And for a long time, Tekken was their fighter, even though they got nothing to do with it.
It launched on the PlayStation, brother.
Right?
I bought Tekken 1.
For the longest time, that is their benefit. Their benefit is being able to just be the home of it without actually putting any stake in the ground, without actually having to actually bleed for it or pay for it, right? Everyone else needs to bleed for it and or pay for it and or it's coming to our platform now. Mm-hmm. But by default, it goes on PlayStation. Now, what's really interesting and what's really cool, what makes all of us where we are a very exciting time is there's no historical evidence of this. This has never happened before, where the market leader has had all the ground and then the incumbent just showed up. The presumably new kid on the block just shows up, right? And dismantles him in so many ways that all of those bullets that used to be in the chamber are now for the streets. What are you going to do?
Well, I'll push back on that a little bit in that's exactly what happened to Nintendo when PlayStation came in and they went and said, we're going to buy all the content.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And then what did Nintendo have to do? They had to pivot hard, right?
Yep.
Hard. And for a few
They
years
Oh,
there,
pause is
adapt.
there
right
was
there.
some
Hold on
dark
just a
days for
second.
them.
Pause.
Uh-huh.
And Sega had to
Absolutely.
get out of the market. That's
They had to
that's
pivot.
literally what happened.
That's right. That's right. So I get that, right? So unless, and I suspect, we've seen some lagging indicators from Sony recently, right? I think they see what we've seen and they're already shoring up their business to potentially do that pivot, right? Now, I know, I really believe in my heart of hearts that had something to do with Jim Ryan's exit, right? My question is, was he going too hard in this direction and that's why they got rid of him, or he wasn't going far enough in this direction and that's why they got rid of him?
That's
but
an interesting
one reason or another,
interesting question. Yeah, great question.
That part really is interesting to me. But long story short, I think that Killer Instinct coming back is super exciting, right? I will throw a stink bomb in these proceedings before we adjourn and say, one, since he's not on the show, he deserves the slander. One, Needless Everborn Saga seems to suggest that
the Needless one,
the Needless one, yes, he seems to suggest that in order for it to become as appreciated as your Tekken and as your Mortal Kombat, it needs to be multi-plat. I say no, sir.
What happened to Soul Calibur, dude? I loved Soul Calibur. Come on, you want to bring up Tekken, dude? Soul Calibur.
So here's an interesting question on that specific thing. Okay, so first, it's going to be multi-plat anyways because it's going to be on Steam. It's going to be on the Microsoft
exactly
and Xbox. But what if they make a deal with Nintendo? We always think about PlayStation. What if they make the deal with Nintendo to bring it there? They're buddy, right?
Yeah.
And Sony's the one that tried to expose Microsoft, right? But Nintendo was all buddy the whole time, right? They're
and we all know
on your deal.
We already know
Outer Worlds was developed on there. Like that's
true.
That's incredible.
That's
like they and that's after they bought Obsidian. Like I'm telling you,
that was after they bought Obsidian, but Obsidian was halfway into that. The 505 Games was really gonna ring that thing out for all it's worth. So that I don't think that had anything to do with Microsoft. But to your point, Hargeet and Crispy, I agree with you that most likely, there is a world where they work with them. I mean, we all know the Abacus might start turning into an 8-track player, far more capabilities. We shall see what it does. Hopefully it's able to play the game. You know what I'm saying?
But Killer Instinct started on Nintendo, did it not? It was a rare property
absolutely.
on Nintendo, right?
I played Killer Instinct on the Super NES. They released a working version. I don't know how in the hell that they did. Obviously, if you looked at it now, you would be nauseous by how terrible it ran. But
I will deny that, sir. I have emulated it recently. It still holds up quite well.
Wow. Holy cow, yes. That's great.
The
that's
OG
great.
Killer Instinct holds up really on SNES. Don't even smoke it. It's great. It's really good.
It's hit detection. I know. I have to disagree with that.
Well, listen,
nostalgia.
I put it to this way. This is again. Today's stream was great. We're gonna get ready to do the outros, but I do want to catch up on the super chats, and we'll get everyone out of here. We have a super chat that comes in the way of Devastator 2000, who became a channel member earlier today. So thank you so much for the additional generosity. He says, to be honest, games should be $30 or $40 in general. I mean, if you wait long enough, they usually are, right? Like they usually will be 30 or 40 bucks, especially if you waited like to the end of the year sale, which is going to be happening very soon. Anyone that didn't buy Dead Island 2, buy that freaking game. It is amazing. 80s cartoon villain who's been a channel member for 3 months says, my condolences to Sony from one villain to another. I love it. That's fantastic.
Well done, sir.
Well done indeed. Jax82 drops an additional $2 super chat and says, Jim Ryan saw what was coming and said, I'm out of here. See you later. And that's true. Silver Afro has become a channel member. Brother, that is very kind of you. Thank you for the outstanding support. We have our good friend JD Gamer drops an outstanding $5 super chat. And he says, let's be honest. Microsoft needs to buy Iron Galaxy, Asobo, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, IO Interactive, and Certain Affinity. Yes to all of those with double check marks.
Well said, sir.
Yeah, well said indeed. We have Homeless Bird drops a very generous $5 super chat, and hopefully you find a home there soon quickly, Mr. Bird. I've been loving Dead Island 2. Yep, there you go. There you go. Regardless of the platform, the experimentation with the weapon mods and skill cords is stupid fun. Shout out to Hargeet. Yes, I beat that game. That game was so good. That game was such a surprise. It had no right to be as good as it was. I mean, that saw like 6 different developers get their hands on it. How it came out to be that good and look that good, I don't know. It's crazy. Hadari Mac drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, for KI, a special character signature move could be an alternative to a fatality / execution. Indeed. I think that's what Crispy was talking about. And our good friend Bold Alpha Wolfpack drops an outstanding and very generous $2 super chat and says, I just really want a new Bloody Raw again. Please, Mike. Bloody Raw was... I imported that from Japan for the PlayStation 1, and it was amazing. What a great freaking game. I'd love to see Bloody Raw come back. I don't even know who owns the rights to that, but that would be kind of dope. Folks, let's get everyone out of here. Obviously, before we do that, Mrs. Boomstick and I want to offer our well wishes to you and all of your families. Hopefully, you will be celebrating Thanksgiving tomorrow with your friends and family. Hopefully, your tables will be plentiful and you'll be able to tell stories and have a lot of great food. And of course, if you're going to drink, and a lot of people do, and this is when the popo comes out, please, folks, the holidays are coming soon. Obviously, tomorrow's a big holiday. Drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. There are cabs out there. You can get someone to come pick you up or have a family member drive you home. What happens with these DWI stuff, and I've seen many horror stories in my police career, don't be that person that not only ruins your life, but also ruins someone else. And with that said, let's get to the outros. Hargeet Chani, by all means, please sell the brand of Game On Daily with yourself, Asa, and of course, the toxic one. Well, not really the toxic one. The septic sauce master, if you will. Gaz, talk about that. Where can people check that out on a weekly basis? And more importantly, where can people not find you on social media?
Yeah, check out GameOnDaily.com and then YouTube.com/GameOnDaily. Gaz is in the middle of revamping the septic sauce stuff, so it's, check out his channel as well.
Yes,
some
his
new
channel.
things are
It's
coming.
fantastic.
So yeah, you can check that out, and hopefully you'll see some new things very shortly. And then I'm not on social media, but you can catch me on Discord, Chani, and Xbox Chani as well. And happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, brother, thank you so much for that. And the Crispy Bomb, who is obviously the meat master, pause. Who's obviously the butcher of the group.
Damn turkeys.
The meat master. I love it. That's Crispy. Sell the brand, brother. Where could people find you on social media? Potentially strike up a conversation, and more importantly, what else you got going on? Obviously, you're off tomorrow, and I know that you were. I don't know if you worked today or not, but thank you so much for joining us unexpectedly. Great to have you here, man.
I did work today. It was not a bad day. I appreciate the customers are very nice to me today. I really do appreciate it. The one thing I want to say is that, Thanksgiving for some people, they don't understand what we're doing, like why we do it and everything else. It's not just like Christmas can go across the board, but for those of you that don't understand, like I look at Thanksgiving as one thing that I could say, what am I thankful for? Am I thankful for my life, regardless of like all the trials and tribulations I have? I am. And, that's something that I think people don't realize about Thanksgiving. It is coming together of family. It is being yourself, and yeah, you might get some ish for it, but that's what we did here today, and I appreciate you all. At Christian Baum on Twitter, Christian Baum 28 Xbox Live, and Friday morning 10 a.m. I'll be there. Breakfast with Boom.
Yes,
And we will be there. Oh, unless are you cutting me off?
no, not at all. No. By all means,
we
please
we will be there. We will be there, and we will be fat and happy, as I like to call it. You know what I mean? And that's, just watch some football, enjoy your family, do those type of things, and we'll see you on Friday.
Absolutely. And actually, we're going to have a killer panel because not only are you going to be there, I'm bringing in the big guns, folks. And we're going to talk about a lot. We have some stuff. I'm putting the show together right now. Fuzzy Belvedere, obviously, is part of Breakfast with Boom. But we have 3 guests. Pong Soul, Mav from Fun Speculation, and I Steel Rain. We're being invaded by Living Split Screen. It's going to be one hell of a show Friday morning. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that. We got to talk about some new Call of Duty news confirmed by Jez Corden of Windows Central that yes, next year's Call of Duty is in fact going to be Black Ops Gulf War, taking us back to the 90s. That is exciting, and that is going to be the first time that Xbox has not only full-on marketing rights, but they'll be dropping into Xbox Game Pass day and date. We're also going to be talking about Halo Infinite. That's right. The one that you see has officially crossed 30 million players. That is a really big deal. Plus, we're going to be talking about what we are thankful for in gaming for 2023. It's going to be a great 2 hours. Hopefully, you'll hang out with us. It's our Black Friday special for Breakfast with Boom, and that's going to be 10 a.m. Eastern. And of course, we have another 2 super chats that came in from Spartan661. He drops not 1 but 2 $2 super chats. And the first one, he says Xbox needs to get Bloody Roar exclusive. Yes to that, sir. And he also says happy Thanksgiving to everyone on the panel and in the chat. Thank you for that, kind sir. Hopefully you have an amazing Thanksgiving with your family. And last but no way least, Kay Asante, whose computer, his very expensive PC, did not explode. Thank goodness for that. Sell the brand of the Gaming Circle podcast with yourself and the kneeless one, Everborn Saga. Talk about it. Where can people subscribe? Listen to that on Saturday morning. And more importantly, reach out to you on social media.
Yes. And I'm now imagining like a video of my PC just like exploding on it. Anyway, no, thank you for having me as usual. It's always fun to be here on a Wednesday and chop it up with you fellas. Always, so some days, these days, those who follow me, I realize that these days my time is very, very limited. I find myself in corporate slave mode far more than normal. But I appreciate being able to come here and get rid of your burdens and chat with all the great people in the chat and also on the panel. So thank you guys. Of course, Crispy, always great to chat with you, and the man Hargeet Chani, and of course Mr. BoomStick XL. Yeah, you can find me usually on Saturdays. We're not sure about this Saturday though. We're thinking about it. This might be one of those compressed, decompressed weekends where
nothing wrong with that, dude.
Unless something like exponentially crazy blows up, we might just kind of call it for the weekend and have people enjoy their turkey days without too much more slander. But even if that were to happen, I don't know. Maybe you might catch me, playing some community games with some people and going online and stuff like that. We'll see what happens. I have some time to kill, so maybe there'll be some games with the community. But check me out, K Asante, TKO Asante, PlayStation, Xbox, all the places that we communicate. And of course, co-host of GCP, myself, and the kneeless one who will schlep himself onto his chair because he's got no knees, because they belong to me now. Yes, they do. Thank you very much.
I love it.
And if you don't know who I'm talking about, go on Twitter. You'll see he's the one that has an icon that says Sonic sucks. Talk to you guys next week.
I love it. That's good. Listen again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We had almost over 600 people here today. That's a really big deal. We super appreciate the consistent support. Hopefully, you're enjoying the content enough to subscribe, because we are just at the cusp of being 303 subscribers away from 14K. That's a really big deal for us. We did set a goal for 15K, obviously, unless some magic happens. We won't hit 15K until 2024. That's okay, but we definitely want to try and at least hit 14K. And if you're finding the channel for the first time, please consider subscribing. We'd greatly appreciate that. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Have an amazing Thanksgiving with your friends and family. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.